people talking about, you might see people talking about how that is connecting to maybe one of their values as well, and when they're motivated more so by meaning. What about autonomy? So, what might we see above the surface is somebody is motivated by autonomy?
I don't know if I'm right, but maybe one thing I can visualize is somebody's doing something with fun and no pressure, with a smile. I don't know. If
Hmm.
you are doing something and you still can smile about that, or you still can, enjoy or have fun, I think it's a signal of autonomy,
Hmm.
maybe.
Thanks, Paco. What else might we see that's visible? I think you've already said one thing. I don't know whether it was Tim or Paco. Um, you mentioned about people just getting on with things, doing things, making choices, and it links to what you've written in the logbook as well, I think. If you give some people time, some people will be very autonomous in their decision making as to what needs to be done in order to get to this end goal. So I think for me, if somebody is autonomous, then they're choosing where to put their energy, and that energy is focused on the goal. So they're making great choices and great decisions about how to spend their energy and time. I think this is one of the easiest ones to spot when it's not present. To see if you're micromanaging somebody and they become very demotivated or very defensive in their behaviors, or their work performance goes down if you micromanage, because micromanagement is a killer of autonomy, really. So I think it's very easy to see if you start to micromanage people. But then it's very easy to see if somebody's not motivated by autonomy, because they'll do what you've written in the logbook as well, Paco. So, okay. So, as we consider these three elements, so autonomy, meaning, and mastery, and we consider what this looks like internally and what it looks like externally, we're going to go a little bit deeper here as well. And we're going to start thinking about how you can use the whole of your brain, going back to session two, when we were thinking about the whole of our brain with our thoughts and our feelings, and utilizing the brain effectively to increase motivation. And we've got a tool that can really help us to do this, to help us to learn to look beneath the iceberg. So, not just rely on these visible behaviors that we see in people, but to go underneath the iceberg. And this is the brain talents. So, just to give you a little bit of background information here, the brain talents are actually derived from the same assessment that you took, the SAY assessment. And there are 18 talents. And these talents are actually designed to help you put emotional intelligence into action. And you can see that they're based on three scales. So we've got the focus scale. This is about, does your brain like to focus on rational data, which is on the left-hand side, or does it prefer to focus on emotional data, which are the talents on the right-hand side? Then we've got this decision making. When you're making decisions and choices, does your brain prefer to carefully evaluate, or does it like to jump in and take risk on the right hand side? And then finally, this is about drive. This is about what motivates you. Are you more motivated by the short term or by the long term meaning of things? So, for example, some people are very motivated by ticking off that checklist, whereas other people will be more motivated by, if I tick off this checklist, where will that lead me to? What will be the long-term benefits of this? So these brain talents really support us to know ourselves, which is in the focus area, choose ourselves when making decisions, and give ourselves when we're thinking about that long term, the why. So you can see these connect to the three areas of our model. So the blue is for self-awareness, the red is for self-management, and the green is for that self-direction. So if you, for example, want to put any of those areas into action from the model, then these talents will support you to do that. We are going to look at these talents through the lens of intrinsic motivation. So I sent you this morning your brain talent profile. So you should have received that in your emails from this morning. Can I just ask you to check to see that you got that? And if you did, could you just open it up, please? Okay. So, um, can I just check, has everybody got it? Great, thank you. So on that, you will see it looks like this, and you will see your top 6 talents in there. You have all 18 talents, but these are the talents that you're utilizing at this moment in time, more so than others. They're in descending order. Now, all of the research says that our motivation increases when we play to our strengths. So, when we play to our strengths, we gain mastery. So, these are your strengths at this moment in time, and you'll all have different strengths. But what I'd like you to focus on is what strengths you actually have, and take a look at those top 6. It gives you a little bit of a description of what each of those are. And for those of you who haven't done the Brain Profiler certification, then you can do a short mini course on it just to familiarize you with the brain talents. And that's in your logbook. So what I would like you to do is to, first of all, consider think back to that time when you were really highly motivated and consider which of these talents were you using at that time. So, which of these 6 top talents were you using at that time? And what I'd like you to do is just to consider that for a moment. And I'm going to pop you into pairs and pop you into the breakout room so that you can share which of these top talents were you using. And then I'm going to bring you back for the next part.
Hello again.
The more we the more we utilize our strengths, the more motivated we are. So I'd like you to now consider this question. How could you use one of your top 6 talents to become more motivated now with a current situation or a current goal or a current challenge? How could you use one of your strengths even more? And in the logbook, there is a section that's just got your name, and then it says a talent in your top 6. And I'd just like you just to complete that column first of all. What's the talent that you could utilize, and how could it support you to be more intrinsically motivated now? And we'll go on to one that's not in a moment, just when we've shared about the cards. Thanks. You're ahead of the game. Okay. So now, as Hung was going to, what I'd like you to consider is there a talent that's not in your top 6 that you think could help support you to achieve a goal at this moment in time? One that you could start practicing to gain mastery over, to increase your motivation. And we have got in the logbook an explanation of all the 18 talents, but Hung's going to share a tool with you, which is our Tools app, actually. It's called our Tools app, where it has all of our cards, different cards to support you on. So Hung, do you want to share that so that you can talk about how people can explore that in relation to this question?
Sure. So before I do
And
that,
sorry, Hung, I paused the recording because it was just the music that was on. Yeah.
sure. Yeah, so before that, just want to make sure. So we have the create the discount code. So later on you can just actually go and create your own account. So I know Paco, you have it back from your. So I need to share screen. So you can just allow me to share.
So, just as a bit of background information, the Tools app is really designed for working in the virtual world because we used to have physical cards for the brain talent cards, but now we're working in the virtual world a lot. We've actually got this Tools app which can assist you to utilize all of our tools when you're maybe not in person. Thanks, Han.
So, so when you create an account, so this is what I have created. So sorry, it's a bit messy. But when you create an account, then you should go to kind of call a card homepage. So you would start with create a board. So basically this kind of like a format where you would put in the card and you can start the activity. So let's say we create this board name, let's say it's a brain talent.
Or should we call it a motivation board?
Oh yeah,
Because I'm looking at it through the lens of
yeah,
intrinsic motivation. Thanks,
that's a
Han.
good one. So you can put in maybe the date, so 13 to okay. So so after you create a board, then you would go to choose some activities. So I think what is cool is now there's a probably about a dozen activities available. So remember last week we did navigate emotion. So actually there's a navigate emotion activities. You can try it here. But and then there's a TFA if you want to do that as well. Try the TFA activities. But for now we just use the motivation. So we can use the whiteboard. So which is an empty board. So once you click that, then you go to the cards. And as Sue was saying, this is where you see all the cards available here, so which is really cool. So we have the TFA card. We have the moon face card as well. Then, so here's is what we would use, the brain talent card. So when you click to the brain talent card, you would see all the cards available here. So the first set of the cards you would see, so this is actually our brain style. You can skip that for now. So we have 8 brain style. And let's go to our brain talents, the 18 brain talents. So let's say the question now, Sue was asking which of these talent that is not in your top 6 that you think that we can help us with our goal or can help us more motivated to achieve our goal in the future. So I think for me, I would go with, let's say, collaboration. So I would just click here and choose collaboration. Okay, here. So I would just, you can make it bigger. So you would see this kind of little 2 arrows here. And when you click, there's a more information about this talent in the back. Okay, so so this is a definition of the collaboration. And in the back, there's some questions if we want to leverage or use this talent. So which I find is really interesting. So let's say maybe one of the question here for me is how can I support people to achieve the best possible outcome? Maybe there's one more, I can pick one more talent for that is not in my top 6. And probably that's, let's say with vision. So I can click here to see what it means and how can I leverage this talent. Yeah.
Great.
And yeah, just one more thing. The final part is you can make a note. And if you scroll it down, and there's a sticky note. Sorry, it's kind of like. See the sticky note inside here. Yeah, so if I, okay, and then you can enter text and just say, let's say I want to leverage this talent to motivate. So something like that. So this is where, and after you finish, and you can save the, usually it would, the board would save, and then you can go back and edit it. So this is how you use that, and it's, I think it's cool because like you can see all the cards available, and you can just kind of like play with that.
Great.
Any questions? Any questions?
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Hung. So, what I would like to invite you to do between now and when we next meet is to just log into the Cards app, and Hung's created the code for you to log into it, and play around with it. And then just answer that question on the right-hand side of the table. What is a talent that is not in your top 6? That you think could be useful to increase your intrinsic motivation, to engage your intrinsic motivation more so with something that is happening now. Okay, and when we'll discuss that when we come back into our session next time we meet on Thursday. Is it Thursday? Yes. Thank you. When we meet on Thursday, we'll discuss that. And if you've created a board, then I'd love for you to share that board in your breakout room when we come to meet next time as well. So you could choose 1 or 2, whichever you think will help you. But it's a great opportunity just to click on the cards, flick them over to see what's on the other side, to ask yourself some questions. And they're really helpful as well if you're coaching or in a consulting space, to ask people questions as well, because there's some of those on the back of the cards too. So, playing to your strengths really helps with intrinsic motivation, as well as that meaning, that mastery, and that purpose. And there's one more element that I just wanted to share before we end today, really. And this is an element that actually, Paco, you mentioned at the beginning of the session today. And I'm going to show you a video really to finish off and for us to consider this other element, and as well as these that you can see on the screen, plus your strengths. And this is it. So at the end of this video, I'm going to ask you what you think that is. Okay, so Paco, you mentioned it at the beginning. So how can we support other people as well as ourselves? How does being the belief in somebody translate to intrinsic motivation?
I just I'm having this thought because to what extent is that be considered intrinsic or extrinsic? For example, like what Tim commenting before, like a validation, approval, that is example of extrinsic motivation, no? When somebody is next to us, okay, this person is validating what we are doing, is approving, is giving some messages. Is that more extrinsic, but how that can become intrinsic, powerful by intrinsic motivation, right? And before I was commenting, like, can we achieve a goal without having that person there
Mm.
in isolation, right? Uh,
I think there's two things, and this is again only from my perspective, Paco, but I think what we saw in the video was different to approval. I think
yeah.
belief and approval are two different things.
Mm.
What did you notice about how people were doing things in the video? Because I think this answers your question in my mind. Yeah, Tim.
Sorry, my sneeze just lost my train of thought. Uh, sorry. So I was thinking maybe with by asking questions, we can help someone develop their own intrinsic. I'm sorry, I just missed what Paco was saying because my daughter was at the door, so I
No
missed
worries.
his response. But yeah, I would imagine telling them anything is not going to be very effective, and you can't just as I hear so many times people saying, you can do it, or you just do it, just get on with it, and you've got to try and tap into so many layers of an individual, which and this whole session today has just been quite mind blowing, really, and in terms of how it's built on my coaching and what I can be doing even better. But if you're not asking questions and helping people tap into their own intrinsic power,
Mm.
then you're not going to be able to help them.
Mm. Yeah. And it's a fine line, isn't it? I completely hear that fine line between, yeah, you can do it. You can do it. You know, who says you can do it? I
Mm.
think even in coaching, if you say in coaching, I'm curious, yeah, but it's not about you, it's about them. So I think the focus is on really being there so people know you're there. And what I saw in the video, and correct me if anybody saw anything different, is that it looked like there was some sort of partnership. It wasn't really somebody telling, like the mother was just sat there listening to the daughter, talking to her teddy bears. She believed that she could do that. If you think about the ballerina, she was just kind of moving her hands gently. She was, so I think it's a fine line, Paco, for me, and I think it can be easily crossed. And I also think it goes back to the victim ally dictator words that we explored in consequential thinking. I'm thinking back now. So if we're using dictator words, if we're using dictator behaviors, then I think that will create more of an extrinsic motivator. And I think if we're using ally words, then that will create more of a belief that somebody can do it themselves and then creating the opportunities for them to master it. But it's a really fine line. I think the words are something that's really impactful in relation to that question. Any other ideas about that?
Yeah, I was thinking also that connects to the way that I was having a discussion with parents recently, no? Like the topic was self-confidence, how to build self-confidence, how to help kids build self-confidence. And one of the part of the discussion was about how we praise, how, what kind of words we are using to praise. Um, and we have to between self-esteem. So that can be important for self-esteem. But when, but we are self-confidence. Self-confidence when you highlight what this person is doing well, but don't forget to move, when you're going to take a curve, move your one example, no? So you are giving feedback, but more precisely. You are saying that what that person is still have to build, instead to say, "Oh, you are I believe in you. You can do whatever you want. You are the best. You can." I think this is good. It's important for self-esteem, but it's not enough for building confidence. So
Mm,
maybe that can be that distinction between uh, praising and the pleasure to hear, oh, this person love us, this person is supporting, this is a extrinsic motivation. But when you are hearing also what you have to improve, I think that can become more intrinsic. You know what I mean? It's like they are motivating you to grow.
mm,
They're giving you hints like, okay, you can practice more this because you can become even better if you do this and that, you
mm,
know? So that
mm,
can be the connection that I can see there.
mm. I think it's interesting for us all to consider before we next meet, actually, because I think, absolutely the words, as we said with the victim ally dictator words, the words that we use it's a power balance. And I think with intrinsic motivation, if somebody gives power to somebody else through those dictator words, or Tim, you were saying about coaching, it's a very fine line in coaching. We've got to be very careful about every word that we use, that we're not taking that power, which is basically taking the intrinsic motivation away and saying, this is my approval. Even as a coach, oh yeah, it's great that you actually did the work in between. I think it's great, but do they think it's great? So I think between now and when we next meet, it will be really interesting to consider that question. So I think two things between now and when we next meet. One of them is to create a board, a brain talent board, with maybe the top talent on it that you want to utilize even more to gain even more mastery, but tapping into your strengths. And then maybe, and again, you can have one or two, and then maybe one or two talents that are not in your top six that you think would be beneficial for you to gain some mastery over in order to help you to achieve this goal. So that's number one. And then number two, let's consider that question. Belief is an intrinsic motivator. However, extrinsic approval isn't. So it's a fine line. So, what do we have to do to support ourselves to not have to seek that external, extrinsic approval, but to generate more of it from our own intrinsic self talk? And how can we support other people to do that? Great. So, thank you for the question, Paco. That's led to some more home learning. which is great. And the other thing is that if you could just look at your articles again, thanks, Hang, for popping those in. There's 3 videos, 4 articles. Just read what is appealing to you and just pop some key insights into the logbook as well. Great. Thank you so much. And if anybody's got any questions, and I've got a few minutes before my next call, so happy to answer those. And if not, I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Thank you very much. See you soon. Thanks for all your insights. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
for
Safe
today,
travels. Safe
Sue.
travels,
And
team.
Yeah, thanks, Sue. Just one question for you. I did another say.